Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of From the Heart. I'm your host, Chloe Trca, and today we are going to be talking about how to handle the feeling of not doing enough, essentially. I actually got a DM from a friend. This is like a requested episode, and like I say, you guys, always feel free to DM me, message me, if there's anything you want me to speak on, and if it feels like something that I've either went through, experienced, or going through myself, I will absolutely talk about it on an episode. And this is a great topic because I also struggle with this myself. And this girl actually DM'd me and said, hey girl, I love listening to your podcast and was just seeing everything you post in general. I was wondering if you could do a podcast dedicated to what you do when you feel guilty about not doing enough, when your brain starts to take over with thoughts, and how you've learned to grow your faith and relationship in Christ. I myself struggle with both of these things because I'm my worst critic and the devil always finds a way in. I just need some sense of direction. I just love you so much. Thought I'd holler. Literally, this is me. I have been through this myself. I still struggle with this often. And I think just as hardworking, achieving people, like the enemy can really attack us at our strength, or in our weakest moments. I feel like the devil likes to. So sometimes I feel like, especially during my luteal phase or a phase in my cycle where I'm just tired, I'm exhausted, or I'm just feeling burnt out from work and life in general, I feel like that's when I feel the most guilty for taking a break, when I need it the most. And there's a few different things that I do to kind of combat these things and work through it. So again, that's what we're going to be talking about today. First, I want to just give you guys a little disclaimer. If you see any protein powder on my outfit, I apologize. I just made the best protein puppy chow recipe of my life. I work with You Can Beam, and they're launching a strawberry Dole Whip vegan protein powder, and it quite literally is changing my life. It is the best tasting protein powder they've ever launched. The protein powder, or the protein puppy chow that I just made, tastes like, if you guys have had those like strawberry ice cream bars, you could get it like the ice cream truck, like strawberry shortcake bars that have like the crumbs, like the pink and white crumbs on the outside. Literally, it tastes like that. It literally tastes like that. It is so freaking good because I feel like the strawberry protein gives the strawberry effect, obviously, and then the cereal kind of gives the effect of like the crunch on the outside, and then the cashew butter and the white chocolate gives like the ice cream effect. Unreal. It is unreal. It's on my Instagram. It's on my TikTok. It's already launched. The protein powder itself, you can use the code Chloe. This isn't sponsored by Beam, but you can use code Chloe to save on the protein powder because I literally recommend it. And this outfit too, since we're just going through things, because the protein powder was on it, this is actually a set that just launched on Young LA for her. It is the coziest freaking set. It's so stretchy. If you're watching this, like, it's the soft stretchy material. I have this tank top in 3 colors with the matching shorts, and then I have these pants, and I love these pants. I will be probably purchasing them in more colors because this is my second time wearing them this week. I literally wore it Monday, washed it Tuesday, and it's Wednesday here, and we're wearing them again. Again, you can use code Chloe to save 15%. But anyway, I digress. Now let's get into kind of the thick of this episode. And another thing, actually, you guys, we're just going to give you a few updates. I don't normally do this at the intro of my podcast, but I, this morning, drank mud water. Again, this is not sponsored. They sent it to me PR, but I tried it this morning. Wow. So essentially it has like those different mushrooms. There's like lion's mane in it. I'm looking at it, but I can't see the different mushrooms. So good. Like, it's supposed to be like a coffee substitute. It's supposed to give you a burst of energy. I think there might be a little caffeine in it. I'm not sure. I have the matcha one and like the regular one. Maybe it's like chai flavored. But I made it like I make my lattes, like with my almond milk, a little bit of chocolate. No, I didn't do chocolate today. Almond milk and a little bit of creamer. Wow. I feel great. Like, it's 11:45 today. I've been up since 6. I naturally woke up at 6 today. It was very nice. But I made that instead of my morning coffee. I went on a walk, had my electrolytes. I feel so good. Like I was telling Jake, I actually feel like I can form a thought. I don't feel super like overstimulated, you know? I mean, obviously caffeine overstimulates you, but I have energy. Like I'm here, I'm ready to go. Like I'm chatty. I feel like I have so much energy, but I'm not, like, it doesn't feel chaotic in my mind. I feel like I can like process things better and like better organized, and I feel less stressed and overwhelmed. Could just be me today. Could be because I had the mud water. I'm going to keep drinking it and keep testing this theory, but off to a good start. Anyway, okay, so essentially back to the question, because now we're going to get into it. wanted me to talk about what I do when I feel guilty about not doing enough. So I like to remind myself that everything has seasons, and sometimes my life is a bit crazier. Sometimes my season of life is more chaotic, and I have to pour more into a certain area than another. So when I feel like I'm not doing enough, I like to check in with myself, and I'm like, Chloe, is something else in your life maybe needing your energy and your focus more than others? And so, for example, like moving down here right off the bat, right when I moved to Arizona, obviously, I mean, my focus is always work, but I wasn't pouring everything into work. And I definitely felt guilt because oftentimes I'd spend a Tuesday like moving in and organizing, or like getting settled in and checking out different places and shopping and stuff, rather than working. And at first it was hard for me, but I had to understand that, one, it was temporary, it wasn't permanent. Two, I still was able to work when I could. But I knew that if I was gonna overwhelm myself with like crunching and pushing so much work in, while also trying to like move into a new state and move into a new apartment and adjust to that, like I was gonna go crazy, and the work wasn't honestly even gonna be my best work. So I really like to sit with myself and kind of just think about like what areas of my life need the focus and need the energy, and just accept that it's not always going to be work. That's like the thing I personally feel the most like guilt for not working hard enough in. But I guess as of recent, I have kind of felt like this in fitness, and I felt like I wasn't giving it my all. I wasn't super confident in like, I guess, my physique and just my performance. I think the thing that really alarmed me was my performance. Like I was going on my runs and I kept being like, is it that time of month? Like, is that why these runs are so hard? Is it the heat? Obviously both of those play a factor, but I think I was creating them as more an excuse as to why I was just getting out of shape. And I had to sit with myself and be like, okay, Chloe, obviously you haven't been running as much since you were training for a half marathon. Like I don't expect and I don't need to be running that volume right now because I'm still a ways out from my next half marathon. I'm doing Boulder-thon actually in Boulder, Colorado at the end of September. You can use code Chloe and you can save $20 off registration if you want to join the half marathon or the full marathon. Me and Kyler are going to be running it together. So if you want to meet us and run with us, you're more than welcome. Sign up. I think that'd be so much fun. But anyway, that's not till the end of September. So I'm not really pushing hard training until probably July. And so I have a month and I'm like, I don't need to be overwhelming myself. But I was a little bit out of shape and like I was going to run clubs, and there was this one time, story time, Kyler and I were running with Jake and Emma. We all went to the run club on Wednesday night and it's a beautiful run. Anyway, Kyler got talking to a friend and so they were running really slow and I stuck with Kyler obviously. And then Jake and Emma like kept going their normal pace, running ahead, and we were all running that similar pace. It was probably like a 10-minute pace. Super chill. I was fine with that. Like I could handle that obviously. But Kyler and I had to pick it up because we fell really far behind them, and Kyler was like, let's go catch up with Jake and Emma. I was like, all right. Kyler takes off. He's running like, I don't know, it felt like a 6:30 pace. It was not, but that's what it felt like. It was probably like an 8:30 pace, 8-minute pace, 8:30 pace. I don't know. I ran my half marathon for reference at an 8:45 pace. So is that super, super fast? No, but that's a pretty decent pace. I literally was like dying. Like I could not keep up with him and I was getting so frustrated, and I was honestly, I feel bad because I was taking it out on him until Jay kind of put me in place. But I was like, dude, like why do we have to be, okay, in my defense, we were like picking off people. Like we were literally running on the side way faster than everyone. And I'm like, I don't like drawing attention to myself, and I didn't want people to think I was like going try hard and trying to pass everyone at the pace that's pretty much set. And I was like trying to show off. That was not the case. So I was a little upset about that. But then too, I think I was just getting mad at him and I guess expressing my frustration on him rather than for like running faster, rather than understanding that it was coming from the fact that I was tired and I felt like I shouldn't be tired. And it was kind of like a check. And I was like, dang, like my endurance is not what it used to be. And so I had to just sit with myself and be like, okay, what's the one solution to this? And oftentimes in the different areas that we're feeling overwhelmed, I think it's because, well, for me, I feel like it's because I'm not doing what I need to be doing in those areas, if that makes sense. So I know I can be doing more, but sometimes if you can do more, doesn't mean that you should. So for instance, the moving situation, I should not have been doing more work because I was already exhausted, complete environment change, like a lot going on. I was doing the best that I could. work like slacked a bit, but like understandable. I can't give 110% every single day. Fitness, on the other hand, recently I have no excuse to not be like maintaining my endurance. I don't need to be giving half marathon training effort, but I can still be doing more than I was. And I think that was a point where I had to check in with myself and be like, okay, the guilt is coming from an area where I know I can be performing better, and I know I can give better, and I know I am better. So for that, I created a solution, and I'm actually running more. So I just was recently in Iowa. I was home for Iowa. If you guys watched the episode with Anthony last week, I was home for Iowa for 10 days. I didn't get a gym membership when I was home. I didn't get like a week pass or a day pass or anything. I took like almost 2 weeks off of lifting, 12 days actually, because I didn't lift the day I got home or the day that I left. So 12 days I went without lifting a weight, hit legs the next day, and I can't walk 2 days later. I'm so sore. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to utilize this time away, and I'm going to run. I'm going to get back into running. I'm going to get over the hump. I'm going to utilize the nicer weather in Iowa because it is hot here. And that is a reason I haven't been running as much, because if I don't run before like 8 a.m., it's miserable, like genuinely miserable. It's like 110 out already. And the sun is just beating on you. It is a sunny state. I'm telling you, it should not be Florida. Arizona is a sunny state. But I utilized those 10 days and I ran almost every single day. I think I ran 8 of the 10 days. I did a longer run. I went on 8 miles. That's the furthest I've ran in months. And it really, built the confidence back in me. It created that routine again and that habit of running. And I just got in better shape. I always think the only way to go up is to kind of go through the process and the training process. And so how do I expect to get better at running if I'm not running? Like, the only way to get better is doing it, like literally going out there and running and building my cardiovascular endurance. So that's exactly what I did. And the significant change that I saw in 10 days is crazy. Like, 1, my confidence is back. 2, the runs are a lot better. I just did a really hard hill workout yesterday, and I did just fine. If I would have done that prior, I probably would have struggled a lot more. So a lot can happen in a short amount of time. I always say consistency compounds. So really, really utilize that. Like, every day, day by day, those little 3-mile runs that you don't necessarily think are adding up, they do add up, because it may be not the distance, which still 3 miles is a good distance, but it's the fact that you put your shoes on and you got outside and you went on a run and you held yourself accountable. Same for one day. I was sitting on the couch and it was like nearing the end of my trip, and Taylor and I had plans. It was a Friday night and she was off work and I hadn't gotten running yet because I was doing stuff around the house with my mom and I was cleaning out my old clothes, whatever. And I was like, shoot, I need to run. I haven't ran yet. And I was literally sitting on the couch and I'm like, you know what? I'm not home very often. I obviously value my time with Taylor so much, but I'm like, if I don't run, the time with Taylor is not going to be as enjoyable, because I'm going to feel guilty that I didn't go out and run and I didn't do what I should do and what I planned on doing, and I didn't hold myself accountable. So put on my shoes, I went outside, I ran a hard mile, 1.75. That's like the shortest run I've went on in forever, like probably over a year. Like, I feel like my minimum is typically 3 miles. I don't really typically run less than that. But I was like, it's not about the miles, it's about the discipline and the routine and the habit. And I went out there and I literally listened on repeat to the song, Another One. It's a worship song. It's so good. For a mile, 1.75. And I went hard and I gave it my all, kind of like it was a faster paced mile split, and I felt good. And then I went and I enjoyed my night with Taylor. And so I think it's really learning to, I guess, get to the root of why you feel like you're not giving enough, and evaluating if it's because you're in a season in an area where you need to let off a little bit, or if it's because you're making excuses and you're getting frustrated with yourself and you're getting overwhelmed because you know you could be giving more, but you're not because it's hard, again, for running. And sometimes for work, though, it's even like that for me too. Like, work isn't necessarily easy all the time. I love my job. I have a great job, but like sometimes it's hard, and I feel like create excuses to not do it because I don't want to do something that's hard. That's human. I feel like we're hardwired to go the like least resistant route. So check in with yourself, and then understand consistency compounds, and you can make changes and you can really get out of that rut way sooner than you think. Like, for me, it was probably a week it took. But every single day, holding accountability, holding discipline, building that routine, it becomes a habit, and then you don't even think twice about it and you feel so much better. And again, this is something that me and Jake both struggled with, this whole feeling of like not giving enough after the 75 hard, because for 75 days in a row, we were disciplined, we were doing hard stuff. I was like on a high that whole 75 days because I felt so amazing for accomplishing all that. Again, it's not sustainable. Like, there was a lot of sacrifices we had to make for that, and maybe they weren't always the right choice, but like we had to because we were in a challenge. But after, it was kind of like a weird season. I think for me, that's kind of when I got out of running too. But I was taking more rest days, I was slacking on my water, and I still slack on my water sometimes. And there's just little things that kind of fell off. And I think I began to be guilty because I knew that elevated version of myself. I knew I could reach that. Like, I knew that was in me. I just wasn't achieving that every single day. And so it's like, once you unlock another level, it's hard to not feel guilty for not achieving that level every day. But you have to give yourself grace and understanding that life happens, and sometimes we can't give our all, and sometimes our energy and focus does need to go into other areas. Even in relationships and stuff, for Kyler and I, we both struggled with this as well. Like, this happens to you guys in most topics I talk about. It's like every area of your life. And so I just hope like anything you're going through, you're not the only one, but like, you're probably feeling like it's this really big deal, but like for you, it's happening in that area, but for somebody else, it's probably just happening in another area. So maybe for you, it's relationships, and another person, it's in work, or like training and fitness and all of that. But what I was saying is, when Kyler and I started dating, our focus and priority and energy really went into each other because we were trying to build a relationship, get to know each other. We were trying to see if we were fit for each other, if we wanted to pursue a relationship. Like, the dating season takes up a lot of time and energy. And so we really had to sit down and kind of chat about it after a while, because at the start for me, it was worth it. So like, the priority was definitely building that relationship and getting to know him, because he wasn't just a boy I was like Snapchatting or something, like, I actually wanted to pursue him and kind of like seeing where our relationship went. But for that, I had to sacrifice some time, like obviously at my apartment, like I'd be with him. And so I wasn't producing as much content, and I wasn't working as much, and I wasn't putting out as much, I guess, essentially work and content. And so I did feel a little guilty, but for me and my understanding, I prioritized building that relationship over work for that season. It was maybe a month and a half, and same for him. Like, his work kind of slacked as well. And it was okay at first because, again, we prioritized that time. But then over time, once we kind of established a more secure, solidified relationship, and we both understood we did want to like continue and pursue the relationship together, we had to kind of refocus our priorities and understand that to give each other our best versions of ourselves, we had to be putting more focus back into our work again, because that is really what elevates us and allows us to like thrive when we're both successful in our work, because we're both self-employed too. So there's a lot of stress, and it's easy to fall behind, and it's easy to feel like you're not giving enough. But we understood that we were going to bring a better version of ourselves to the relationship if we spent less time together and we put more time back into work. And we both came to that understanding. And I think that's kind of a benefit to dating him. Like, for him, when he was dating me, it was refreshing because he hadn't met a girl who really understood that, because it is hard to like give all that time, but then have to kind of cut back, because obviously I want to be with him all the time. But again, priorities, duties, like, you've got to get your work done. But when you're self-employed, people don't always understand, like, we have a flexible schedule. Like, you can do this in the middle of your day. Right, we can, but it doesn't mean we should, And so we had to really get our priorities straight and kind of over time create schedules and create routines and see what worked best for us, our relationship and our work schedules. And we've created a much healthier, more balanced approach to it. And I feel like we're in a really good place with the balance we have in our relationship, time together versus work. And again, like I said, if you're self-employed, I'm sure you're really relating to this, because it is really hard to honestly ever feel like you're giving enough, because I can be working constantly. Like, my job never ends. I can be working Monday through Sunday. I can be working at any hour of the day, producing content, editing, emails, networking, connecting, brainstorming, getting inspo, working on a side project, like researching stuff. Like, there's constantly stuff to be doing. And it's so overwhelming. And anytime I do take a break, I do kind of feel guilt, because I'm like, dang it, anytime that I'm not working, I'm like, wait, it's wasted opportunities, how I used to view it. And that's not necessarily right, because sometimes the most productive thing you can do is rest. And I really had to work at that, because I knew it, but it didn't mean I was necessarily practicing that, and I wasn't actually resting when I was resting. And I hear a lot of self-employed, like entrepreneurial people say this, like they were taking rest, but they weren't actually resting because they were spending that resting time freaking stressed out and focused on the fact that they weren't working and that they should be. So if you're feeling like you're not giving enough, are you even resting? And if you're not, begin to give yourself rest. Like Kyler and I like to use our Sundays as like an off day. It's kind of like the Lord literally has in the Bible that you should rest on like Sunday. And so we've kind of utilized that, and we're like, okay, like that's a great place to start for us. We don't do much work on Sundays. I obviously still like post on my stories and stuff, but I'm not really doing much computer work. I'm not checking emails. I'm not doing like hard work. It's just kind of like my fun work that I feel like I want to post like in the moment. And Saturdays, sometimes we do have to work on Saturdays. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we'll work half a day on Saturday. But it's really finding that balance. And I think another way to help kind of combat this is like setting goals and then setting steps to those goals and just making sure that you're accomplishing the steps to get to where you want to be. It kind of takes the pressure off like constantly working, because it's like a checklist thing in my brain. So it's like, okay, did that step, like I'm one step closer to reaching my goal, and then I can kind of breathe and relax for a bit until it's time to take that next step. This can be like one task a day. This can be one task a week, one task a month. That's like getting you closer to that goal. I don't know. Obviously it depends on the goal, but finding little pockets of like goals and steps and little routines to like do, accomplish, and then be done with, for me helps with like the guilt of like not doing it in the moment or not doing something 24/7. But again too, hustle culture is very active, very lively, especially I'm not gonna lie, like males, like the masterminds, and there's a lot of like self-employed guys who do like online coaching and stuff. Like they are like grind, work all the time. And they're always preaching about how you have to like make sacrifices, and you do to get to places, but those sacrifices aren't forever either. So sometimes understanding that season of your life, like, is it a season of sacrificing time, or sacrificing whatever it is, like it's okay for a season, but not forever. And so I feel like there's a lot of pressure, I would say, in like for males, being providers and being self-employed and feeling like they need to keep climbing constantly. Like it's still important to rest, because rest is like where you revive and rejuvenate and like reset. And that's so important, because no one can produce their best stuff when they're like run down, exhausted. And everyone's like, I don't believe in burnout. If you're passionate about something, you'll never be burnt out. Or Kyler was like, I don't think I ever get burnt out, because if I can't fill my cup up, Jesus will. And I see that side, but I also feel like I've like went through burnout and like done too much. And I think for me, the burnout was the fact that I was pouring everything into one aspect and completely leaving everything else empty. So I was only focused on work. My relationships were suffering. My health was suffering. Social life was suffering. Those things were suffering, and that was draining to me. So learning how to give a little bit in everywhere, in every cup, but understanding that the cup that's maybe the most full is going to change over time, by week, day by day, month by month, year by year, who knows, but it's probably going to change, and that's okay. But we just need to give ourselves grace. And I genuinely think like when I sit with myself and I know I'm doing what I need to do, I feel a lot less of that guilt, because if I can find small wins throughout the day, I'd love to do that. So for me, getting a really good workout in, that's a win for the day, and that sets me up, and I feel at least accomplished in that sense, and I know I did something hard and I accomplished it. And then honestly, that builds confidence for me, and it makes me want to like continue to work harder at my work and get things done. But I'm a to-do list person. I write like what to get done. I prioritize a few things. I get those things done, and then I let myself rest and I let myself have a break. But just kind of creating routines, and it really, like I said, it starts with like your top priorities, like your must-dos, and then you break it down from there, and you can break it down day by day, task by task, whatever. That's how I do it. And when I finish my work, I've learned to just shut it off. And it's hard, but again, I understand that doing that is also doing myself a favor and a service, because I'm able to pour into my relationships, or I'm able to pour back into myself, giving myself more time to like become a better version. And when I'm a better version of myself, my work benefits. So, yeah, I don't know. I definitely have non-negotiables, but those non-negotiables are put in place because I know without them, everything else suffers, you know? So, anyway, I feel like this might be a shorter episode, but that's kind of how I feel. That's kind of how I deal with like burnout and feeling like I'm not doing enough. Give yourself grace, set goals, and really have that thought process of being like, is this a priority, or is it okay to be focusing in a different area right now? And yeah, so if you're struggling with this, I'm sorry, because it genuinely is the worst. And it's something I'm going to continue to have to work at every single day, probably for the rest of my life. But if you're doing your best, that's all you can ask for. And every day, just try to be 1% better. Just try to work towards something. And I hope that helps. But anyway, I love you guys so much, and we will chat in the next episode. Bye, guys.